The 12th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.
Consider This with Carol Schrader, a news and informational program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha.
Consider This, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha.
Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Once again, from the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, here is your host, Kathy Wyatt.
12 seasons, 390 programs, 3 hosts, 19 staff, and countless students later, it is time to bid farewell to the Milo Bale Student Center. Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic is Consider This, and an announcement that prompts changes both on air and behind the scenes. Joining us to talk more about this today are Carol Schrader. She is, as you know, the former producer and host for this program, and Jim Adams, Assistant General Manager for UNO Television and Executive Producer for Consider This. Welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for being here.
This is very bizarre.
It is a little bizarre, I have to say.
One thing people need to know, it's hot out here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always sitting over there in the dark in the shade feeling rather comfortable, but if you're a guest out here, there's a lot of lights pointed at you. It's kind of toasty.
This is going to be a very interesting program, I can tell
Let's
already.
roll.
Jim, let's go ahead and start with you. Before we talk about Consider This specifically, give us a brief history of UNO Television, specifically its programming.
Well, UNO Television originally began in about the mid-50s and was known as University Television, and UNO was known as Omaha University. And in the beginning, they didn't have very much equipment, if at any, and so the people here would go over to KMTV, the commercial station here in town, and use their equipment and produce shows that aired on KMTV. TV Classroom was really the first program. Okay. And the most popular one that aired. At sometime in the 60s, we got to join hand with a group of educational consortia known today as the Knowledge Network. And so that gave us broadcasting outlets on the local cable channels. On Cox here in the metropolitan area, it's channels 17 and 18. And on and Quest, it's 74 and 25. But also, in the mid-60s, Nebraska Educational Television built a low-power UHF transmitter right here on campus, and that was known as KYNE TV, and UNO Television was able to broadcast some of its programs on that. So we do cable here for the metropolitan area and some programming on Nebraska Educational Telecommunications.
Okay, one of the programs, of course, being this one, Consider
yes.
This. Tell us how all of this came about.
Well, when I started here in 1997, and it's kind of odd to bring up, well, all 3 of us worked at the local Omaha affiliate, ABC affiliate, KETV. And one of the things I enjoyed at KETV was a program that at that time was called Viewpoint. And it was the issues and information program, and I worked a lot of those, and Carol was the host for a long time.
You directed a lot of them.
I directed a few. And I liked the idea behind it. And at this time, we were running a program called UNO Scene, and I wanted to expand the topics and make them a little bit more interesting, not only just the university, but to the Omaha community and eventually across the state.
Okay.
And it really was kind of a labor of love. It took some time getting it going, but my superiors at the time and the university were supportive of Consider This, and we were able to program on the Knowledge Network channels, and I begged to try and get us on statewide, and eventually that happened.
He begged.
Excellent. And
And they
Carol,
were receptive.
and that's a good thing. And you were very first host of this program. How
And
on
I-
earth did you become involved in this?
Jim, You know, when you have longtime friends, it's hard to run away, especially in Omaha is just a big small town, you know. So Jim asked me, and I just kind of made him keep talking because I just wanted to hear what he was thinking, and he was very optimistic and saying that this is a good thing for the university, for the community, and hopefully, and he kind of, that was his fantasy moment when he said maybe if the stars are right, we can get the state to get involved with this. So, and then of course the interesting thing that people don't know is that when I was working at KFAB and doing this show, starting it, I needed someone to help me produce it and line up the guests. And who did I ask?
Me.
Kathy Wyatt.
You
So
did.
she really has been on it. We had meetings with Jim and a lot of production people, and it was the most intriguing thing of all, and we'll talk about it later, was the student involvement.
Okay,
That's
wonderful.
the thing that's one of the coolest things.
But for right now, we want to go to the very first program,
Do we
Carol. Now, before we go to this special clip that we have, can you remember what your topic was for the first program?
Well, because of the person I was interviewing, it was this institution and its new chancellor.
Okay, so without further ado, let's roll on the clip of Carol's first program.
Hello and welcome to the first edition of a new news and public affairs interview show. It's a production of KYNE TV, Channel 26. This is at UNO, as you well know, and 24 years ago I did my first television interview ever at Channel 26, and I'm very glad to be back. My guest for this first show.
Well, you went on to actually host 266 programs.
When Jim called me and told me that, it blew me away, because life, as you know, when the older you get, the faster it goes. And we'd finished one and was on to working on the next one. So I was amazed.
Went pretty quickly. All right, now, of all the interviews that we did, we talked to production, and they actually found one of the most, I would say, maybe unique guests that you ever interviewed during your stint here.
I think I know.
And I know that Mike has that ready to roll, so we're going to take a look at,
Let's do that.
at that. Okay.
Our guest this week is from Scottsbluff. Please meet Mr. Luis Calvillo. He is a Democrat running for governor. Now, this is not your average candidate by any stretch of the imagination, are you?
If I win, I would like to ask the people to go back a few years in the 60s, where there was love.
Bob, but there was drugs,
Yeah,
and lots of other things.
Love, nonviolence. They used to call me the Blue Angel.
The
Los
Blue
Angeles,
Angel?
In California. But love, and no death. Optimism, positive thinking, being gentle.
Any comments from that, Carol?
That was the longest soundbite that I was able to get from Luis Calvillo. Was a Democratic candidate for governor. He hoped to win the seat of honor in Lincoln, and he was kind of a perennial runner. He would run, and he had kind of an interesting platform and things. He was really hard to get a hold of. I have to say, Steve Graziano with Nebraska Educational Television said, now, you know, we have to, if you're going to run the gubernatorial candidates, you have to run them all. So investigating, I found this name, Luis Calvillo. I asked around, nobody had heard much about him. That he kind of run for things, and he run as what they call a pauper candidate. In other words, he doesn't have to pay the fee and whatnot. Getting a hold of him, he didn't even have a phone. So get a hold of him, send certified letters out, get him here, and basically most of the questions, it was the hardest interview I've ever done in my life. The answers were yes or no. And a half an hour becomes a lifetime. But he's a sweet guy. And he was going to fax everyone in the world, really, was his campaign strategy. Remember that?
Yes.
And the Pope was in there somewhere. I don't recall, but maybe you want an endorsement from the Pope.
Which I think brings up, oftentimes when any of us are watching any program, it seems like it was just so easy to put it together. People seem to pull it off and make it appear as though it was pretty effortless. Not necessarily the case as you saw with that particular program, but talk to us a little bit about what you're doing behind the scenes during the week to prepare for what people actually see on the air.
Well, I was born with a curiosity, thank the Lord, and so I'm always trying to first figure out something. I will not say that every show appealed to everyone. A guy in York, Nebraska told me once, yeah, I've seen you on TV. Yeah, that state show. Not always very interesting topics, but I always give it a shot when I roll through the channels. And the point is that, I know that sounds kind of funny, but we would try to find things that maybe had a connection with things that were happening or things that weren't. In fact, this show is about the only one I know of in this state that still tries to just give people a forum, not to let them run on, but or a topic of forum that anymore with this, you know, CNN, Fox, CNBC, where people just get a couple experts and they just bark back and forth. We try to let people have a say on topics that they're just not going to get at any length now. And then with our newspapers getting even smaller and shrinking, you don't have the long stories about things. So what I guess my personal curiosity, I'll admit, was, you know, one of the basic criteria. I had to be interested in it somehow. But, you know, finding the people, getting them to be able to come here at this time frame. I mean, it was scary enough just for them to consider parking at UNO. So, you know, we would always give them the, give the ticket to Jim and he'll take care of it. So, but I think that's the real thing about this show. And I have no real part in it other than the concept that Jim wanted to carry on. The show that I did at Channel 7, the Viewpoint show, there are no shows that really you just get to sit and talk. Granted, I didn't entertain everybody, but I do think I had some fascinating guests. I really do.
In your time here, what do you believe you left?
Well, I myself didn't leave it. I helped build the foundation for something that is unusual in television anywhere in the country. Really, in commercial television, you know, as you know, the affiliates of the main networks and on the main big cable shows, you won't see just, except maybe somebody like Larry King, you know, but he, you know, you have to reach megastar status to kind of get that free reign to just talk to someone for half an hour or an hour.
And in May of 2006, you decided that you were going to leave. What prompted the move after all that time?
Oh, personal situation. I needed to get a full-time job and happened to go to work for the Douglas County Assessor, which is a political office. I was an appointed chief deputy, and therefore, when you enter the world of politics, you can't really claim that you're an unbiased person, even though everybody brings some biases into a program like this, I suppose. But, you know, then that wasn't right. It really wasn't. You know, our journalistic upbringing, Kathy, you know, you try to keep politics, be apolitical, and I just didn't think that would work.
Now, I'm sure people who are watching are curious to find out, what are you doing today? Well,
I got into something that I really like at the worst time in the world. I am a realtor. I am a real estate agent. Things are coming around. If you do a show on that, I'd be glad to talk about it. But yeah, but I deal with investigating answers for people, you know, giving them information. That's the part I like, and the people part. So that's what I've been doing forever, in a way.
You're bound to be a success,
just one-on-one rather than broadcasting, right?
Right. So Carol leaves Jim, and now you're having to figure out who is going to replace someone who's been here for a very long time, obviously set a great stage for this program.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. And you found Andrea McMaster, and I know we have a clip of Andrea just to remind people of her. Talk to us a little bit about Andrea.
Andrea came from a broadcast background. She worked at the local NBC affiliate, WWT. She had left there to pursue some other job here with the Med Center, but also to spend time with a new family she'd just begun. And she had great credentials. She had people supporting her that just said she'd be great, and she was good at searching out topics, and I think her love with health questions, and we had some very good health shows on, and I was lucky to find her, because it's hard to find. This is not a full-time job, and
no.
We record at an odd time, just really before we air, first time of the week on Thursday nights. It's tough to get people here, and believe it or not, parking is a problem. It keeps people away.
It's hard to get an employer to say, hey, every Thursday for X number of weeks a year, I'm married to this. And that's the hard part. She was a great.
Yeah, she was.
Okay, so she leaves, and then what happens?
Well, then I threw it all up in the air and said, what do I do now? I'll call Kathy. No, again, thought back to our history together, and what thought I wanted to do is really push the topics a little bit more, come up with something that was more state influenced, but stronger topics. And I, again, knew your experience in broadcasting. You were a producer at KETV for a long time, and I always remember you being very aggressive at finding out what you needed to find out and get it correct and get it right. And you're perfect for it. Plus, you had a year under your belt as a producer here anyway,
Right.
which really helped. And extremely pleased with you.
Well,
You knew
thank
how to
you.
find the fireside pit at the Milo Bale Student Center, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's right.
And a lot more.
Yes, thank you. And so we do have a graphic, Jim, that kind of sums up the history of this program. And we wanted to have you, before we go any further, just walk us through the history of Consider This.
Well, the program first started October '97, but our broadcast year covered 2 years, so we went '97 to '98. That was our first year. What I have here is in season 3, where we began on Educable. That is now known as NET2. It's the Nebraska Education Telecommunications cable channel that airs throughout the state. So that was 3 years of hard work to get that on. But I kept sending examples down and showing topics, and eventually they relented and put the program on. We, in the 5th season, that'd be what, about 02, we decided to produce programs over the summer. And that added extra time, extra production work, and added to everyone's schedule, included the budget. But we started to get more of a year-round feel. Although we did broadcast year-round, this was truly pushing the limit there. And season 6 is the one I'm proudest as, that Nebraska Educational Communications thought we were good enough to be broadcast over the airwaves across the state. And that was a great opportunity. I'm still pleased with that. Now, season 9, Carol leaves and Andrew McMaster begins, and it worked out more seamlessly than I thought. I thought we'd never find anybody to produce or to come in your place, Carol. In season 9, I believe, we produced 43 programs in the year, and that's a lot of programs. It may not seem like a lot, but that's a lot of setup each week, a lot of guests here on campus, a lot of guests trying to find parking, a lot of different topics. And so we're close to that every year now, producing around 40 programs. Season 11, Andrea McMaster leaves and Kathy Wyatt starts, and nary a drop-off. And now, after our 12th broadcast year, we're going to leave the Milo Bale Student Center and go over to the UNO TV studios to produce. This is in a unique place. It was, I thought of it as a neat opportunity to produce here. It put our department, UNO Television, out in front of the campus and the community. But it also showcased the university as our backdrop. And I mean, you see students walking by, you hear crashes occasionally of things being dropped, but it's a very live background. And I thought of it as different, and we're in a nice little area here, but they're doing some remodeling in the student center, and this area won't be available. So we'll be back in the studio and producing programs there.
Well, which is a great opportunity for us to transition from, we've been talking about on air, let's go behind the scenes. There are some, what I would tout as unsung heroes with this production, and that would be the students. And we actually put a clip together here kind of showing what goes on around this time frame. And if you want to walk us through that, Jim.
Well, this program doesn't just begin. There's many hours of setup where we take equipment, lights, cameras, microphones, cabling, and move it from the old engineering building here at UNO Omaha.
Which is tough when there's ice on that road.
Yeah,
on
that day it was raining out.
But ice is the real killer.
And we bring the equipment across a cement walkway in here to the student center. And then what I like here is you get a good idea of what the places looks like. The space we have to deal with, and we've got to hang lights and run power cords. And it's easier now because we've done some power infrastructure work and cabling work, so it's not as hard as it was, but it still takes us hours to get this program together. The lighting is intricate and very important. NET demands a high quality level, and we give it to them, but it takes time.
There's a whole audio board over here, and of course the 3 cameras, and it's amazing what they do. I've gained a great deal of respect for the students. They act professional when they do it. Jim expects them to, and they will. But the interesting thing is that the whole UNO television, radio, the whole curriculum in broadcasting here is kind of not melded together, but they interface a lot. And this is one example, probably the most expensive and costly in terms of time for your staff to also help them and watch them and mentor them, which is terrific.
But you never know that, and when the show comes on, everything's been set, all the lights have been checked, all the bulbs that blow out. Occasionally we catch beforehand, but some actually blow out during the program. There are certain things you can't control, such as noise or people talking, but that's just part of the live background, which is this program, which I thought it made it unique.
And the audio and video signal literally transverse from one building to another. In fact, we did some experiments. We've done shows in the Strauss Performing Arts Center, the Fine Arts Center.
We've done that in the Sapp Field House.
That's right. When Sandy Buddha took over the Omaha Beef.
Omaha Beef.
He was the old UNO football coach.
And then after governor's debate, we did one upstairs here, another floor up. That was our first year, I think, too.
Right. So it's really quite a tribute to the staff, Jim and his staff, as well as the students.
Absolutely. Carol, while we're talking about this, what we talked about a unique program that you were a part of earlier. What was your most memorable program? I'm just curious of the many that you did.
I kept trying to go through them because I'd have to go through every email and everything to find. I think the political ones, when we talk about, especially when there was a statewide election coming up, and we had the heads of the Democratic and Republican parties always coming head to head, and they enjoyed it, and they always generally got along fairly well. There was a collegiality, even though they were on opposite sides. Ann Boyle and Chuck Sigerson, and then their replacements down the road. And so I enjoyed the political shows. I enjoyed things that may not have interested some people, but when we talked about mental health issues, and I enjoyed we did a lot of history. When the Lewis and Clark expedition, the big anniversary, we had Bud Clark in his buckskin and coonskin cap, remember?
Yeah.
He's the great, I counted the G's, great grandson of William Clark, of Lewis and Clark. We had, from that same era, we had Native American that works for the Park Service, 6'4", remember? He was a stunning man, but he's also Park Service, and he put the whole display together for the Lewis and Clark for the park. And the letters, the Barker letters, their man in Omaha, we had former Chancellor Del Weber, and he was one of the co-editors of that whole thing, the history in letters.
But I want to remind you of the program you did with Art Buchwald, because he had a certain, he was like your first interview you ever did.
Art Buchwald, when we did him, he was here for to speak to a mental health group in Omaha. He was the first real live non-fellow student interview that I did. They needed someone to fill in when I was in college here for the UNO scene, or the precursor to that show. And they said, you have 4 hours. You're going to interview Art Buchwald. So he was my first. And so it was kind of neat.
Yeah.
Well, and talking historically, let's change gears and go to the future of this program, Jim. How is this funded? Just curious.
The program generally is funded by the people of the great state of Nebraska. We use state funds to help pay for staff and crew and for equipment, but we also receive money from the Top organization, which is a children's instrumental program. But we could always use more. These are tough economic times, and we watch the budget, I think, tighter than anyone else can. And we could use some more. Anyone's interested in putting their name on a program and supporting us in that way. But it's an expensive show because of the time it takes to set up and the equipment moves, and the equipment gets used hard and tends to doesn't last as long, and but the university has been great with me to let me continue to do this show every year.
And in just the very small amount of time we have left, you alluded to it earlier, but paint a picture of what people are going to see the next time they tune in as far as the set.
Well, we haven't unleashed a new set. We're going to probably do that later in the summer. But we'll use a standard set that we used when we occasionally did programs from the TV studio. And the thing I know I miss is I don't hear the noise of everything around me, but it's also quiet, and the lights are already there and a lot easier lit. And it's a little bit more of a, I don't want to say professional look, but it's what people expect more when they come in to do an interview talk show. But I'll just miss seeing the students fall asleep out here.
Loudest trash can.
Yeah.
Remember that? The one that when the guy, it's a big yellow trash can and make a loud noise. I just want to say I have no vested interest other than just an interest in television news in general, is that I wish people would send you suggestions, send you feedback, make it real. When you're trying to justify a program like this, I mean, we seem far away if you're in Albion or whatever, but you know, let Kathy know, let Jim know, let the powers that be know that, you know, I have an idea, or I think this is a good thing.
Yeah, and that's a very important point to make. We really do welcome that stuff. I do think people think, well, they've got it all taken care of, but we're representing the state, and we want to make sure we're doing the best job possible.
And they have shows on the website. You can go back, if you see a show, have a friend watch it. I mean, I'll do a commercial for you, but you know, we can't let these kinds of things go away on any level, these kinds of shows, access to the public.
This has been one of the fastest 30 minutes I think I have experienced. I want to thank the two of you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
What a great opportunity for me, quite honestly. And as we close today, we do have one final clip for folks. We want to thank you all for joining us week after week. We appreciate it very much. We'll see you next week from the UNO TV studios.
Hi, I'm Carol Schrader. For years, I've brought you the news on issues from around the Omaha area.
Consider this. I'm Andrea McMaster. Join me each week on Consider This.
I'm Kathy Wyatt, and it's my privilege to present those issues for your consideration. Join me on the campus of UNO in a program we call Consider This.
Consider This.
Consider This, a program produced by UNO Television to give you more information than your typical newscast.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours.
The 12th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.